This episode of Talkin' About Rock is sponsored by Unleashed Music. Drawing on years of experience, contacts, and partnerships, Unleashed Music is uniquely positioned to platform, develop, and realize the vision of artists of all genres. Achieve your goals by partnering with Unleashed Music and take advantage of their decades of experience to help you create and execute your marketing campaign. Visit unleashedmusic.com for more info.
On this episode, Chris Catero from the Imperfected. Welcome to this episode of Talking About Rock. I'm Rob Edwards. Here we bring you rock interviews from veteran and upcoming artists. Subscribe on our YouTube channel to stay up to date. Follow us on our social media and our website, talkingaboutrock.com. Today's guest started as a music promoter and event coordinator before signing his first record deal and becoming a recording and touring artist. Here to speak with us about his latest project, The Imperfected, let's welcome Chris Catero. Hello, Chris. Can you hear me?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, great, man. Okay, just making sure that you were responding. Okay, no problem. All right. So look a little bit through your history here. You grew up in the 70s and 80s rock music. You started off promoting shows, then you got signed. Do you think that gave you a better understanding and insight than maybe a lot of other musicians that got started?
Yeah, I mean, I was always I started off as a musician. I was playing in cover bands in college, but I got an opportunity to work for a lady named Barbara Hubbard at New Mexico State University. And she had a program that you literally worked in the real world of music business. So, we booked shows into our arena that I worked at. I promoted, marketed them, the whole nine yards. And this was all going on while I was simultaneously still, I was young and green, starting out trying to get, my first original bands off the ground, and which sort of came around simultaneously. But yeah, certainly I got some world experience at good old New Mexico State University. To kind of show me there was a little bit more to it than just playing music, so to speak.
Yeah, because I think that's something that a lot of artists, and to this day, struggle with, is learning how to promote themselves correctly and what that entails. And obviously, in this day and age, that's always changing, right?
Yeah. Well, it's totally today. It's a moving goalpost all the time.
Right.
How to promote yourself and what to do. It's. I mean, from the time when I started, I signed my first record deal in the mid '90s, and it was just totally different, then as it is now. Back then, we're still part of the old system. You dealt with a label. They did all the promotion. You got charged in overabundance for it. And when the accounting time came, it always looked really impressive how much they spent, and they didn't really spend that much.
Yeah, because you had to pay that back to them in one way, shape, or form, right?
Well, yeah, there's always creative accounting, right? But you learn, like that's part of the process of learning as an artist. You kind of have to jump in and prepare yourself to pay for your knowledge, quite literally out of your pocket a lot of the time, and but it opened up other opportunities for me. I was always, I guess, maybe a little entrepreneurial about what I was going to do. That I think I realized sort of early on that realistically I needed more revenue streams if I was going to be part of it, in the music business. And so I learned other aspects of it too. After that first record deal kind of went south, which they all do eventually. That was a band called War Dog that was on Metal Blade Records. After that was over with in the very late 90s, started another band called Razor, which some of the guys from War Dogs jumped in with me. But within a couple of years of that, I actually got an opportunity to jump in with Crank Amplification. And Crank was, at the time, a pretty big and well-known guitar amp manufacturer. Dimebag Darrell from Pantera sort of helped put us on the map. It was just this little tiny company out in Tempe, Arizona. And, he started playing the amps, and it opened up a whole new, door to what could be done. I got brought in shortly after. The general manager there, funny enough, so to talk about, things you do to be an artist. All of us when we were in War Dog had taken jobs that were line related because we could fly everywhere back then for free. And it allowed us to go do shows across the country or even in Europe that would have been too expensive for us to do, especially coming from Phoenix. Geography has a lot to do with how well a band can go out and promote themselves and do things. When you're in the Midwest as a band, you are an hour and a half from most, another major market. Right. You can easily weekend warrior the major markets there. When you live in Phoenix, you're out on an island. You're talking 6-7 hours from any market that has any meaningful impact. And that was something that hampers bands, coming from the West. So that was one of the things that we did is we, we all worked. We had we had flight benefits, which helped. But after that happened, when I went to Crank, the guy who trained me at America West Airlines happened to have left and became the general manager of Crank. So there was a little bit of fortunate circumstance there. And I got brought in to ultimately do artist relations and marketing and sales there. And in that respect, I had already been playing. I'd already been doing things in the business. I knew people. So that was part of the reason of bringing me in, was that I had a little bit of a Rolodex that I was bringing in with me and a little bit of knowledge of what was going on. So, I just started looking at all those as opportunities to do other things. I've always sort of considered myself a ham and egger at the music business, I mean, I've gotten to play with some pretty prominent guys over the years, but I'm just I've always taken the approach of, you try to do as much as you can, and you say yes to all the opportunities you absolutely can. And if you don't know how to do it, you figure it out.
Exactly right. And so what I was reading also is the catalyst, I think, for your new project here, the Imperfected. You had the first single, I'm Vengeance, which was kind of inspired, what I was reading, by The Dark Knight, right?
Yeah, well, that was by the Batman. So after the Crank thing ended, I actually jumped. At that point, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I had a friend who is big in sync music. And for people who don't know what I'm talking about, that's basically TV type of music, movies, video games, stuff that you hear in shows. He'd been doing it for years and years, and it always interested me. But I didn't want, it's also a very competitive game.
Right.
There's a lot of people trying to do sync music, and and as many times I wanted to ask him, hey man, can I you think you could hook me up? It's right. Like, yeah, you're hooking me up to be competition. But he was running a guy named Steve Womet. And Steve, you may not know the name, but you know some of his work. He did a lot of the Guitar Hero 3 stuff. Like The Devil Went Down to Georgia was actually Steve.
Oh, okay.
As well as my Razor singer singing the song, coincidentally enough. But so he brought me in and had me do a couple things for him for a library he was overseeing, and it kind of kickstarted me. And I started doing primarily sync music, with just picking up the occasional gigs here or there, or I've always been, again, putting my having irons in the fire in different ways. I've done video, I've done graphic design, things like that. So it was just another thing to try to do what I was doing, but yeah, sync music has primarily been my occupation and thing for the past few years. And one of the things when you do stuff for libraries, they own the music. You get kind of a brief from them of what they're looking for. You create some stuff. As soon as it's said and done and they approve it, it goes off into the nether for them to go, put into their library, and you move on to the next. It was a weird thing at first jumping into that from being an artist, because as an artist, you sort of, I don't know, you hoard your ideas, right?
Exactly.
You feel like you go, oh, that's a great idea. Do I really want to let this idea just live with this library now that, and it was a weird thing to get your brain around, going from artist to being what I would consider a commercial artist, where you're just creating, media for people.
Right.
But one of the things that I realized in that was that I could create an artist entity for myself, which was the Imperfected, in which I could take all the ideas that maybe didn't go to these certain libraries or whatnot. I could turn them into an artist song for myself and create a catalog of sync songs for me that I wholly owned. And at the same time, I get to have my artistic yayas,
Right.
I get to do things that I want to do. The other thing that was really exciting to me about it when you're in a band, you sort of got to pick a lane. At least that's conventionally what you end up doing.
Right.
The industry wants to pigeonhole you into, you are this, you are that.
You have a certain style or a certain look, or exactly.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And it was something that with this, I thought, I can get all over the map if I want. I'm not trying to be, this one thing. And I thought to myself at the same time, I've got a lot of talented friends. I can get people involved that, we're not married to a single singer,
right.
Those kind of things. So it's a little, the gorillas in nature,
right.
Of doing this thing that's more of a creative outlet, that's a little bit more of a free for all.
Yeah, definitely. And there's been some other projects that have done the same type of thing, that have had revolving people that have gone through, Deep Purple back, and they had revolving people, right? Dead Daisies are kind of doing that now, so that kind of seems to fit in. And like you said, this gives you a lot of diversity for your project, where you can try different things here. So let's talk a little bit about the latest track you got here. Need You Here Tonight. You got Matt Harris on vocals here for this.
Yeah, Matt is like a good buddy of mine here in town, who's a really talented singer. Phoenix does have actually quite a good selection of musical talent here, and I'm fortunate to be friends with a lot of these guys. And Matt was a guy who, his voice, he's got a really cool alt rock kind of voice. It's a little Perry Farrell-ish in a way, a little STP-ish in a way. And I just thought that for this particular song, once I wrote it, he seemed to be the guy in my brain that was like, man, I bet he would sing that really well. And that's where I went with it. And Matt, luckily was all in, wanted to jump in and do it. And so he came over and we had some fun. He came in with a couple ideas himself too. And we got here in my studio and hacked through some things and came out with what we did. And, that's one of the fun things about doing this Imperfected stuff is collaborating with different skill sets, and Matt, I just thought killed this particular song. And I know I'll do another song with Matt in the future as well. But yeah, I just thought that was one of those things that Matt was going to be good at.
Yeah, definitely. I really like it. So I'm going to take a quick break here and let's check out the video and the song for Need You Tonight. And we'll be right back here on Talking About Rock. Okay, we're back here on Talking About Rock. Just checked out the track from the Imperfected here. Great stuff, man. Great song and video. And like we were talking about earlier, you are a man of many talents here, wearing many hats. Videographer, songwriter, producer, all these different things going on. The music library, including an ongoing production partnership you got with producer manager Alan Niven of Guns N' Roses. Well, can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about how that kind of came about?
So Alan and I became friends at towards the end of my tenure at Crank. He had an artist he was working with. Now, Alan lives here in Arizona as well. He lives up in Prescott. And he had an artist he was working with who really liked the amps, had called me up. And Alan and I just sort of hit it off pretty much from the get-go. And then he, through the course of having conversations and working a little bit, he heard my own band and then he got intrigued by that. And he came and kind of sat in with us to do a session to see what he, kind of investigate it. And after the session, he wanted to work with us. So what ended up happening was Alan and I had such a good time working this last Razor record that we did together. We worked well together and we have a very similar mental process to things. And we both decided we thought it'd be great to continue working as a production partnership. But Alan's a very close friend of mine too. I've considered him from the get-go kind of more of a mentor where we've turned into more peers to each other. I mean, he's a guy who's talk about a guy who's done a million things in his career. He's known for the Guns N' Roses, saga. You could call it that during his time.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a saga.
White.
Yeah,
yeah, it's a saga, and it certainly was when he was around with it. And Great White, which when you have to think about it, he was dealing with Jack Russell and Axl Rose simultaneously, so that would make any person go crazy. But Alan also was really instrumental in a lot of people's careers. And he's got a new book coming out called Sound and Fury that is a tale, just a lot of collections of rock and roll tales that from his time of doing things. And it's a really fun read. It's an interesting read. Alan is a very gifted writer. He wrote a lot of the lyrics in Great White and has a actual just wordsmith. He's a great writer in general. I mean, I know professional journalists who have commented about how great Alan is as a writer. So it's a fun read. It's an interesting read. And when he started deciding he was going to do this book, I was a little bit of, kind of the guy who he would send me chapters and say, "What do you think?"
right.
Because I'm still like a big rock music fan, so I read biographies and I do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and he knew that, so I would sit and kind of give him feedback. And he had told me so many stories over the years. We would put our heads together, and I'm like, "Okay, Alan, have you written about this yet?" He's like, "Oh, I forgot about that."
Yeah,
I'll write that. And this went on for months. Him and I going back and forth with this. But at the end of the day, I kind of proposed to him. I thought, man, what if we did a soundtrack single to the book? I mean, it's a music book,
Right. A lot of people are doing that now with books they're coming out with. They do some music with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had a piece of music that I knew he would gravitate towards. And I sent it over to him. And we hacked it out. He had some ideas of how he wanted to do, some of the vocals and definitely the lyrics. He wrote the vast majority of the lyrics. And at the end of the day, we came up with something that was a nice little companion piece to the book. The book comes out in June, and the single and video will come out just shortly before. It's called Sound and Fury, same as the book. It was a fun song to do, and it's another one I was able to collaborate with more friends to do. Like my buddy Bobby Sisk, who lives here in town, is going to be the vocalist on this one, as well as a very talented background singer named Rashida Jordan, who used to be with Gladys Knight, is doing some stuff on it. And then I throw my throat in there here and there as is needed. But
Excellent. Excellent. Sounds
yeah,
amazing, man. Sounds amazing. We definitely look forward to that book from Alan. And you perform with a lot of great artists. We don't know if we really spoke about them. I mean, Marty Friedman, Slash. I think you did some shows with Bruce Dickinson. Also, you've kind of did a little bit of everything here. What's coming next from the Imperfected? You got some more songs coming up, or you're looking about booking shows, or what's going on?
we have some more songs coming out. The interesting thing about trying to do shows is because the music is basically me. It's me performing everything.
Right.
So, I guess Wolfgang Van Halen got away with it with his Mammoth, right? Where he did his first record like that.
Right.
But
Then he eventually had to put together some type of band.
he did. Now I put myself into a corner by having all these different voices, right? So eventually, there's been a little talk of trying to do some shows. I sort of have to wrangle a couple of these singers into wanting it to do it,
Right.
to see if we're gonna do it. It's honestly at this point, playing live would be fun with this band. It's not a priority for me. I've got so much other work that I do and things like that it would have to be a specific block of time to be able to do some things like that. I'm not discounting it though, because we've talked about it. A lot of the material, if you go back and listen to what I have out so far, I'm singing on a few of the songs. The stuff coming out is going to feature more guests. Minus there's going to be one I'm definitely singing a Motorhead tribute kind of thing that I'm doing called Lemmy Made Me Do It, which will be out sometime in the summer.
Awesome.
I'm a massive Motorhead fan.
Excellent. That sounds great. Yeah.
So
definitely.
that's a fun one for me to do. But yeah, there's a little bit of play it by ear with this. The next big thing though is really going to be trying to help Alan with the launch of his book and that single with that. So I'm sure I'll be busy through the end of the year because I do have a few other releases that I want to come out with.
Excellent. Yeah, very cool. Well, you've done so much and you're into all the different aspects of the music business. For our listeners out there, do you have any advice for new artists or bands starting out? Maybe something they should concentrate on or think about when they're trying to get their product moving?
Go to school and don't do it. I got to say, it's one of the hardest right now. Is probably one of the hardest times ever to try to do anything in the music business because there's so little money to be made now. I mean, there was realistically, if you go back in time, even back when there was actual money to be made, it was a fraction of what was being made by the labels, right?
Right.
And the labels have just figured out a way to not lose any profits, but basically screw the artists through their own streaming deals, the percentages they take for streaming.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. And it's actually hard the touring business has not been easy as of late either.
Oh no, definitely not.
So, you're kind of starting to, what are you going to do? I see a lot of artists trying to utilize things like TikTok and whatnot. I just think they're horrible formats I mean, they're great formats for creating a little buzz of certain things, but they're horrible formats for trying to actually, if you want to be an artist and you have this song you want to promote, like TikTok, you can't put up more than 60 seconds of music.
Yeah.
You have to compact your art down into the quickest, easiest form. And that's probably easier to do for pop artists. For rock artists, that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. The only medium really now is YouTube, where you can have different things on there and play your different shows. But that's kind of turned into more of a promotional tool for bands that want to show their promos and stuff to get gigs at this point.
It really is. So, I wish I had some golden advice to impart upon people, but I really don't at this point because, I think to myself, I'm like, man, I'm glad I'm not like, just trying to start in the music business at this point. I will say this, it's more of a young man's game than it ever has been, or young person's game, should I say, because there's a lot of women who are trying to rock now, which is awesome. But you have to be able to go out and just kind of live in squalor for a moment to try to make that work. There's really no getting around that. I don't know that there's any cutting corners at this point to make it. If you do, one of the biggest problems that always happens in the music business is, artists always want to point to somebody who had this flash bang lightning strikes moment that catapulted them to the top. They're pink unicorns, man. Like it is the exception, not the rule. And in the music business, it is really the exception. Yeah. The rule is everybody else flogging it out and hoping you're going to catch a break, which may never, ever come.
Yeah.
So, if I was to say anything from a standpoint of advice, is to try to be as original as you can be. If you hear everybody doing what you're doing, everybody who's on the radio or whatever doing something, don't do that, because you stand no chance at that point. It's, right. Try to be as original as you can. Create, something that doesn't have a ceiling that is, mired in lack of originality. That would be my biggest thing. And then at that point, you're going to have to just go out and you're going to have to hire promotions people. You're going to have to go shoot your shot and see what happens. There's no easy way in or out.
Yeah, definitely. Very good advice. Very good advice, man. So folks out there, you can check out the Imperfected. The new song, Need You Here Tonight, is out now. Thank you to our sponsors, Unleash Music and School of Rock North Buffalo. And we hope you all join us for our next episode of Talking About Rock.